We got to tear some shit down in this country. Seriously.
When Huey P. Newton fled to Cuba, Elaine Brown led the Black Panther Party. She was the chair of the Black Panthers from 1974 to 77, and she was the only woman to ever hold that position. She's been dedicated to fighting for Black liberation for decades. She's put in a lot of community work. She's run for office, tackled criminal justice reform, fair housing, access to healthy and better food through farming. And as you would imagine, she takes no shit.
Elaine Brown is a legend. Her activism, her art, her music, and her writing speaks for itself. But we wanted to sit down with her to find out what she thinks about some of the biggest issues that we're currently facing as Black folks and what we can do about them. So we did.
You're listening to AFROPUNK Solution Sessions, where we have the conversations that matter to us, conversations that lead to solutions.
I'm Bridget Todd.
And I'm Eve Jeffcoat. So today we have a very special episode that I'm really excited to share with everybody. We're doing things a little bit differently today. So Elaine Brown's getting a whole episode to herself. I mean, how could we do less than that for a woman like Elaine Brown, right, Bridget?
I think that's true. We talked a lot about what made the most sense for this episode, but both of us having spent an afternoon with her and a day with her, really she is a woman who commands so much more. She deserves a whole series. What I remember so much about that meeting with her was how alive she is. We knew we were meeting with someone in her 70s. I think that comes with a whole host of sort of expectations. She shatters all of them. This is someone
literally
who
all.
Still here, still fighting, still sharing her stories, and is just such an icon.
I don't know how you felt. I guess you did feel this way based on what you just said, but it really felt like an honor to sit down with her. I mean, I feel like sitting down with somebody like Elaine Brown can be a bit nerve-wracking in the beginning just because she does have such a presence and she has such a history and a story, and we know she has so much to share sitting down into it. It's like, but then it was such an honor to sit down with her and just get a little bit of the insight, all the insight that she has and all the knowledge and the wisdom and her story, and that the energy in the room just felt so charged, it felt so charged with her there. But yeah, this conversation that we're having today, I feel like, too, is just very important because it's the day that Fred Hampton, who was the chairman of the Black Panther Party, was assassinated in '69 in a police and FBI raid. So that's the 50th anniversary. And, Mark Clark was also killed that day and other Panthers were hurt in the raid. So I just feel like it's important to recognize this day, not to dwell on the death or the negative, but to acknowledge, Fred Hampton's legacy and the legacy of the Black Panthers and their resistance and their resilience and their dedication and their beauty and all the work that they put in. And it's also just so important to remember the people who came before us and the path they paved for not just the work we do today, but for our very existence. That doesn't just apply to the people who have died, but also to the people who are living and still fighting and still working and just on injustices and just being revolutionaries. Yeah.
Now I'm 76 years old. I'm 5'3.5". I weigh 113 pounds. I can't kick nobody's ass. People be scared of me, and so I let them be scared.
That's Elaine Brown. She has a lot to say, and she's definitely going to say it. She also looks really amazing for 76.
From the beginning, she checks us to make sure that we came to talk about her work, not just her personal story.
I don't mind because I talked about it in my book, and I will talk about it. But one of the questions that I will raise tonight has to do with how do we feel about something beyond our identity and all of our little stories that we have that are nice, but, and what.
She stresses that activism today seems more self-focused. Many folks are fighting to be seen as individuals, loudly wanting validation for how they identify instead of emphasizing collective liberation and working to better what rights and equality we have as a people. But we did want to get into how her early life influenced her activism. I mean, we do love a good story.
Half my girlfriends were pregnant by 14. Half the guys I knew were dead or in prison by 17 and 18. How'd that happen? So let's talk about that. If you want to talk about that, or you want to talk about, my mother gave me piano lessons, so what? I'm not sure she was the one that paid for them, but that's another conversation. My mother was an inveterate liar.
How did you go from that upbringing to being this iconic activist?
Well, life happens. We don't do things in a vacuum, do we? If you weren't born black, you might have a different perspective on life. I don't know where you were born or whether you were born in the United States or not. Even that would give you a different perspective and all of those other things. But certainly, growing up in North Philadelphia and being deprived of things that I didn't realize I was deprived until I saw white children in school that I went to. So it gave me a perspective immediately, whereas most of the people that I lived with, this was a norm. We were slated for having babies and being gangbangers and probably dying young. So when I grew up, nobody had an expectation about anything, and there wasn't anything available to have an expectation about. So this notion of I can dream and, I believe, obviously, what's his face can't fly, can he? But anyway, I was exposed to information that allowed me to know there was a world beyond 21st and York Street, and I wanted to be a part of it because I knew now that I live in a very dark, literally dark. I mean, like, the house was dark, mice running through it. And then I went to people's houses, they had refrigerators. I was like, what? They don't have an icebox. So there were these day-to-day things. So I didn't know how to fix that, so what I wanted to do was join them. That's pretty bad, isn't it? But most of us do. We go through that duality that Du Bois talks about, being black in a white man's world. And if we don't, then it's something we're pretending. But most of us have like white people's voice, inside voice, all that other stuff. So I just, in my case, because of my exposure to white people and who are relatively well-to-do, I realized that I did not live the kind of life that was available, and I didn't want to be that. And so the only way I thought I could escape that was to escape being black. So I'd be black in the hood, I'd be white at school. I thought I was schizophrenic for a very long time. So in growing up like that, I just sort of escaped the whole thing by pretending, as white people would tell me, well, you're not really you don't even really look like them. You're different.
She says that she loved being patted on the head by massa. Those are her words. But then she realized that she wasn't really in with white folks. One day, a black woman who lived in her building in Westwood asked her if she would teach piano lessons to kids in the projects in Watts.
So when I got to the Jordan Downs Project, I was starting to get this eerie feeling. It was reminding me of something like me. And then we went into this ugly little apartment, where she had just put like a piano and had some chairs, because she was really just trying to get her master's degree, I realized later. This was her doing her thing, practicing on the little black children. Like her book that they were reading was Sammy Davis's Yes, I Can. It's like, I believe in me, and when I believe in me, then that's all that really matters. And so that was her thing. And if you really believe in yourself, you can achieve anything, because America is really a great place and there's a lot of opportunity. Well, that's the theme of I can believe, do whatever I want to do, right? So I walked in, looked at that stupid book, looked at these chairs, looked at these little girls, the little skinny girls, thought about myself playing double dutch, singing little nasty ditties on the street, how bad I felt. And I looked at them and I'm like, oh, I had my little Thompson primer, piano primers, my little first year, practice books. I said, oh no, they don't need no goddamn piano lessons. This is some bullshit. Now I'm back in North Philly, where I am from. Like Eve, I am from. That is who I am. It is what defined me. And I said, they don't need piano lessons, to myself. And whatever they need, I don't have it. Because it's too big. I know what they need. And the reason I know is because I know them. And the reason I know them is because I am them. And I cannot come down here and play no more games. But I threw myself into everything that I thought was black, got very angry at all the black nationalists with their bullshit, and then finally found that the Black Panther Party was the only intelligent response to being black in America.
That's the super condensed version of her path from upbringing to Black Panther Party. She says that she'd seen her mother draw a knife on a man and that her mother was a track and field star. She says that part of her tough, broad side comes from that. She tells us how the Black Panthers appealed to her because of what they were doing.
Yeah, that reminds me of when she spoke on stage at the Solution Sessions in Brooklyn. Let's listen.
NAACP, SNCC, CORE, Urban League, whatever. It's the only organization that had women. I wasn't the only woman. You had Kathleen Cleaver, Erica Huggins, and Audrey Jones. A whole bunch of sisters took leadership. And the most important thing is why we did attempt within the party to create a revolutionary culture internally. We knew where we all came from. We didn't get these brothers from revolutionary heaven. And we didn't come from revolutionary heaven. Some of us thought that we were supposed to do certain tasks and things. We didn't have a son. We were comrades. We were revolutionaries. In 1969, the end of 69, there was a raid by the first SWAT team known to all the police departments in America. The LAPD assaulted our office at 41st and Central for 5.5 hours. 5.5 hours. They had all kinds of assault weapons, a tank, used helicopters, threw grenades in. 11 people fought the goddamn police for 5.5 hours. Of those 11, and didn't die. Of those 11 people, 9 were brothers. So I want to talk about getting back to the question of freedom, the black agenda for ourselves, because we're not free. We might think we're free, but we have to recognize. So I'm using the Black Panther Party, something I know about, as one example of what we might look to. We had a 10-point platform and program, and our first point was we want freedom, power to determine our destinies. Power to determine our destinies. And what does that mean? It means that we have to be in control of something.
In today's world of online activism, she really wants to encourage us to focus on the difference between words and action.
What are you going to do? Trump's in office. Now, we can sit in this corner for 5 days without stopping and talk about all the horrible things we can say about Trump. But ain't nobody gonna do shit but sit in this corner and talk about it. In a simple phrase that Che Guevara coined for me and for us, words are beautiful, actions are supreme. All the shit you talk don't mean nothing unless you're out in the street doing something, organizing.
She says that the Black Panthers gave up everything, just lived day to day and slept on the floor. They had nothing and put everything they did earn into one pot. But eventually they made money through their ventures, like selling their newspaper. They were out in the street organizing, and so was Elaine.
What does power look like? What does freedom look like for us?
Well, it's called self-determination. This language is pretty standard in all the African liberation struggles that you need to study. What's been going on in Mozambique for the last 40, 50 years, or in Tanzania, or anywhere else? You want to be AFROPUNK? Let's talk about African people around the globe. What do we have? We're not even in the global 720 or any other goddamn economic configuration in the world. And yet we have in Africa, Africa is the only continent in the world that has no need for other resources. It has all of the resources that other countries seek. All. And yet we're the poorest, Sierra Leone, the poorest country in the world, right? Why is that? Why is that? So the question is self-determination. Do you own anything in America? Anyone that even looks like you? And so you're individualizing because we've grown up in this capitalist mindset that it ain't about you and fuck you, it's about me. I'm gonna help you when I get there, if I remember. I hope I remember, probably won't. It's our duty to get past some other bullshit that we engage in and organize for a movement that will do that.
So what if you're not necessarily aware that what you're doing is bullshit or what you're doing is not necessarily?
Well, then you're gonna have to analyze. You have to being woke means that you have a critical analysis of what are the factors.
Would you say that where you feel we are today is that we are not prioritizing the right things, our priorities are in the wrong order?
No, I think we don't know anything, and that we have got to be. There's no way for you to know it. Everybody's distracted by Facebook bullshit. By Twitter, tweet, whatever that is. They're distracted by all of this bright and shiny, sparkly stuff, and everybody wants to be they want a half hour fame. Everybody looking to be famous, really, because everybody wants to be on something. They want to have some type of, and this is what we're seeing like this. We don't even recognize that we are a people. That we have a history, and that the majority of our people are really living like shit, including some of us who are deluding ourselves into thinking we have something because we can, we have some place to live. We like 1 minute from not having rent, but nevertheless we think, we've arrived, you know what I'm saying? You know, most black people have like no savings. The wealth gap among blacks and whites, and these are average whites, is like the average white has net worth of something like 177,000, and the average black 17,000. Now what the hell is that? And that 17 is probably fake. You know what I mean? Because that ain't no house, right? So we are inculcated with the values of white people. Even when we resist, we're resisting against them. We don't even have a sense of being self-determining. Do you understand what I mean? In other words, we say, well, I don't care what they say, I'm gonna do this. But we still worried about them. We are involved with them. Do you follow what I'm saying?
Yes.
We let them define. I'm mad because this white person wouldn't let me in their restaurant. And you know we get mad about that shit. Even I get mad, and I have to look at myself quickly. And then I go, wait a minute, I'm sorry, I have money. Why am I standing here doing this? Problem is, ain't a lot of black restaurants. You know, it goes on and on and on. So my point is, we living in their world. And we are overwhelmed and inculcated with everything of their values. So the very fact that they're all coming out now, these little white boys running around here talking about how white is right or whatever they're saying. They've been thinking this. They just got a window for a moment, window of opportunity. And we've always known it. Our problem is we, blacks in America, in this country, have never had a country. Do you have African friends? You're not. Are you from the continent?
No,
are you from the
I'm
continent?
not. My mom's Caribbean, but I was born here.
But therefore you don't have that deep U.S. thing. Because once you have that other thing, like no matter what, wherever I go in the Caribbean, these people are a little more proud than the average black person. You know what I'm trying to say? They're not as caught up. They caught up because they've been enslaved and colonized, but the whole country black. We walking around with all white people every time we turn our heads, right? Their country, everywhere they look, the president is black, somebody's black, the government is black. You know what I mean? It may not be perfect, but it's a different cultural thing. And so there's this difference, I always say. So all of my, like I'm seeing this man who's a Nigerian, well, Igbo as he likes to say. I always ask all of my friends that are not from the U.S., that are black, how far back in your history can you go? You already know what the answer is. If they don't know, it could be 1,000 years for all they know. Well, I was raised on a farm. I love okra because for the last 1,000 years, we grew okra on the farm in Nigeria. Really? We don't know nothing about okra. I can't tell you nothing about nothing. You know, I mean, seriously, I can tell you that my mother's mother's from Virginia. Before that, I don't really know who her, because she claims she was the product of a rape of a white man and a black woman, and therefore she hated white people. But we don't really know who these people are. You know, people had to give each other names and shit when slavery was over. We didn't have no names. You just, girl Eve, you know what I'm saying? Born on the Hoobie Boo plantation.
Right.
And then, like a friend of mine, Tyson, is a young brother I work with all the time. He's saying his family can go back almost 100 years. I'm like, who the hell are you? But somebody's grandmother walked from like Virginia to Alabama or Alabama to Virginia to find the father of her son, but it was right at the end of slavery.
Wow.
But there's stories like that, but there's few people that know these kinds of stuff. We don't even know. And then we really don't know what was our name. They gave us a name. We had no name.
Yeah.
We just slave Hoobie Boo, born of Hoobie Boo. You know, like the whole Hemmings piece, we have a good record because Thomas Jefferson was a famous man. He kept a record of his children that he made from raping a little girl named Sally. And so we know something about how these records were kept. And we see the ship's logs and so forth that tell us about people that were, brought in captives and sold and all that. But we don't really know anything. And so they have this sense of themselves that we never had. Do you understand what I mean?
So if you don't...
And that is the problem that is unique to us. One last thing. But the good part is we've invented ourselves and reinvented ourselves every goddamn day. We ain't stuck in nothing because ain't nobody come to get us. I told Stokely Carmichael, then Kwame Ture, you say Africa is our mother ain't been kind to us. Ain't nobody come and got me. I'm pissed off. You let me get on the ship and just forgot my ass. Generation upon generation, I get bastardized, sold, raped, and everything else. You ain't said a mumbling word. You saw me over here suffering. You didn't even call me and say, come on back home, sister. So we had to create a home out of a place that was our hostile enemy. It's amazing when you think about it. It is. So that's the good news about us.
We've been finding ourselves a little more every generation, she says. And she thinks we've done a great job, but that now we need to get back to it. When we get back, Elaine talks about her own business ventures.
You don't have to tell people, but if you start the Black Panther Party, as the movie phrase said, if you build it, they will come. You can't wait for these people to figure this shit out. You really can't. So right now, I've got this property. I'm building, I can tell you, 79, 100% affordable housing units. Now in Oakland, you can call a place that costs $2,000 a month for a one bedroom affordable. That's how sad shit is. Oakland and San Francisco have overtaken New York. Isn't that amazing?
Yeah, it's wild. I lived in Lake Merritt for a while, near Lake Merritt.
That's where I live.
Absurd. It's absurd. And I can't believe that they call it, I can't believe they have the nerve to refer to some of those places as affordable housing.
And they look like affordable housing because they ain't gonna fix shit up either. No, I mean, $2,000 is the average rent in Oakland for like a one bedroom. Wow. And that's some shit. So the point though I'm making is, so I'm building that, but I didn't intend to build it. I intended to develop businesses for cooperative ownership. And I keep telling these people, I'm not trying to build a business for your ass. If you want a business, get some money and do it. We're gonna work together or we ain't gonna have nothing in this universe. And when I find the money, I get to do it. See, I'm the boss, I'm paying the cost because I'm putting the money in. So I'm gonna get to tell you how this goes. So my point is, can we be self-determining? Instead of saying, like, we didn't make anything in here, anything on me, on you, well, maybe you made it, but then we're talking about who made the cotton and we go to the exploitation. You know, it's like all this shit is made by the Vietnamese people, some shit. Barring all of those details, but I think transportation, I asked these people, I said, what do you think of when you think of transportation in terms of yourself? And you know, they said, getting a BART card. That's the rapid transit system. Getting a BART card. That's that oppressed mind. You ain't even thought about who owns BART. How does BART even get up there? Who built that shit?
BART stands for Bay Area Rapid Transit, the public transportation system in the San Francisco Bay Area. Who legislates it?
Well, no, legislating nothing. I'm owning and running shit now, right? Who made this table? We don't know, but it wasn't us, I assure you. You follow me? So that's what self-determination means. You can be rich. You can play ball with the NFL and all the little bootlicker shit you do, but you could at least say, let's build something in the community. I said the same thing to the dope boy. This nigga named Lil D did 25 years in the joint. He was one of the richest dope boys in America. Felix Mitchell was the #1 dope boy in Oakland. So they had a funeral that went all around the block for that, died at 21 in prison, but anyway. So this was Felix Mitchell's protege. And he's like the biggest crack, heroin, whatever dealer. And he goes down, he gets a 25, he gets a big sentence. Obama releases him. Now my boy's sitting up in the joint, but okay. So he gets released on a federal, because he had a federal time. So he gets 25 years. He ain't got nothing. He's like 50-some years old, 50 years old. He walked out the bridge one night. You could have taken, since you done killed all these people to make this money, you could have taken that money and built some housing. But no, you had to buy Nikes and gold chains and shit with your dumb ass, right? That's that oppressive mind. You could have made the gold chain. You could have gone to the Gambia and bought gold for almost nothing and had some people in the hood making chains. But no, you just had to buy that white man's stuff. You follow what I'm saying? Yeah. So what I'm trying to do now is to create a model for the concept of self-determination. Can we build our own businesses? Now, these businesses are not that great. I'm talking about a restaurant. I'm talking about a fitness center. But this is my little beginning. And I got this shit going. And for real. It's a $53 million project. And I done found the money because I done got the people in the whole piece. And I ain't kissed nobody's ass for it. So that was the position of the Black Panther Party. But how do you get everybody on board? Yeah. Now, this is how we did it. One, we put guns in the street. People were very impressed by that shit. Scared but impressed. You know that guy in Philly they tried to say was a mass shooting. That wasn't no mass shooting. That brother shot at the people that shot at him. Right? Now everybody's scared to talk about him, Maurice Hill. But Maurice said, I'm not going today. Now all the rest of these people tell me, hands up, don't shoot. Mara said, I'm gonna tell you whose hand gonna be up in a minute. I'm breaking out this AK, but he didn't even kill nobody. I was like, well, Maurice, I'm gonna give you credit. North Philly, Philly, where I am from. That's Tioga Tenderloin. Yeah, that's the neighborhood. I also lived there. I lived all over North Philly, but I lived at 21st New York most of the time. You mind me show you a picture before I go?
I would love to see
So, it's various levels. We are not prepared to fight and win a fight against America. If all black people lined up and brought all of our guns together, we could not handle the New York PD. Even if all the black people from the New York PD joined us, right? You know why? They have so many fucking guns. And what they don't have, the New York State Police have, the National Guard has,
tanks.
Wait a minute, the Coast Guard, the FBI, the Army, the Navy, the Marine Corps. We will be outgunned. So we have to find strategies for freedom that are appropriate for here, but we can't act like we don't want to be self-determining. That is what we want. Does that mean they haven't oppressed us and that they're not responsible? Of course they are, but if you expect them to pay for this shit, the only way you're gonna pay for it is when I'm gonna start blowing away you and your family, and then, oh, wait a minute, did you mean you were pissed off with me? So we have to think of strategies that will be viable. So right now, I'm just trying to create a little model, what I'm calling a survival program. We had a slogan, survival pending revolution. This ain't no end all be all of nothing. If we bought this hotel and it would take us 8 years, let's say, that ain't gonna change nothing for people in Brooklyn. You know, it's like, they be still over there in Bed-Stuy trying to figure out how not to have gang shootings. So I'm thinking that even if we did do this, what would it do? It would only do something if we created a viable model for other people to do the same thing, to begin to dig ourselves out, because ain't nobody coming to get us, and they are doing everything to, not just to keep us down, but we haven't been needed since 1865. That's the part we don't get.
She goes on to talk about how black people started building their own businesses around the Negro League baseball industry.
We were growing little hotels because we had no place to stay when we were playing in the South. So black people started creating their house and expanding their house to a little 6-room hotel or whatever. You know, follow what I'm saying? In other words, we were developing our own businesses. If we don't have our own money and you are dependent on someone else, if you live at home, what do your parents always tell you? This is my house. You gonna play by my rules, right?
Yeah.
Isn't that what parents tell their children all the time? You don't get, you not gonna do what, you know? So this is their house. Now, it's hard to live here and figure this out, but we can do it, but we gotta think as a group. That is our biggest problem. And those that don't wanna be part of the group need to be called out.
So during the Brooklyn Festival at AFROPUNK Solution Sessions from the festival this past year, we were so lucky to be able to share an evening with Elaine Brown. There was this moment where she came up on stage, she did her first reading, and then she got this massive, massive standing ovation for maybe a solid 5 minutes.
But I want us to rise up and claim what's ours and take down our enemies decisively, thoroughly, and absolutely and completely, and claim power for our people so that when we say power to the people, we can mean it all, power to the people. Thank you.
I was really struck by this idea that I think that when you're a Black elder, so many of our elders, when they pass on, we think, oh, I loved such and such, or like, I wish I would have gotten to experience such and such live. But what we don't do is really give our icons, our elders, our legends, their flowers while they're still here on earth to smell them. And so I really did have this moment watching Elaine Brown soak up this much deserved standing ovation from this group of young Black creatives and movement builders today. It felt so right. And I think that we as this generation need to do a better job of listening and amplifying our elders. I feel like we're so quick to be like, oh, well, such and such is auntie. And that has a kind of a gravitas to it, but it makes it seem like someone is on a shelf, dusty, that they're not still in the fight, still with something to say, still read in on what's happening today. And Elaine Brown is exactly that. Like, she's still fighting. At 76, she has still got something to say, and we have so much to learn from her. So I think that was the most impactful thing for me, is being part of watching this living legend get that applause, get that standing ovation while she can really see it and enjoy it.
I'm so glad you brought that up, because I love that moment. Like, I feel like my heart was just so full in that moment, just seeing everybody clap for her and seeing her soak it all up and knowing that she deserves it and knowing that she's still doing the work and knowing that all those people are sitting there in front of her, listening to what she has to say and taking that forth in whatever way they so choose. But also, I think you bring up a very good point about our elders, because not only just like, not wanting to listen to what they have to say, or it's just like there's a thing where their ideas and their thoughts and the way that they think and the things that they have to add is disowned really easily by some of us, a lot of the times, as if what they have to say is outdated, or if what they have to say is no longer necessary or no longer the way we want to move. But we can all exist at the same time, and we are doing ourselves, not just our elders, but ourselves, such a great disservice in not listening to what they have to say and not taking it in, as if they didn't do so much work that we can see the benefits of today. So yeah, thank you for bringing that up. That's so important.
Absolutely.
Okay, let me get out my solutions handbook. What's the solution, Bridget?
Practice self-determination.
And is there anything else?
Well, Sister Elaine is really big on fighting for the collective, not just for yourself as an individual.
Is that it?
Well, probably the most important is just the idea that our elders that came before us have lessons and insights into the movement today. We should listen to them and absorb their stories while they're still here to learn from.
That's such a good point. I think I have everything written down here. AFROPUNK Solution Sessions is presented by AFROPUNK. Your hosts, writers, and producers are Bridget Todd and Eve Jeffcoat. Executive producers are Jocelyn Cooper and Quan Lateef Hill. Chelsea Stratton is associate producer. Audio engineering and sound design by Audio Mystics. Many, many thanks to our content team leads, Emil Wilbekin and Steven Silos. The Underside of Power is performed by Algiers. Subscribe and download new episodes every Wednesday wherever you get your podcasts. Connect with us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at AFROPUNK.
Punk to me is just like, cut the crap, Like, we're not mincing words. We're not tiptoeing around the conversation because we're uncomfortable. I mean, even the most literal sense, right? Punk music is like, turn up the volume as loud as it can go and in no uncertain terms say exactly what it is you came here to say, basically. Because I feel like, at the end of the day, like, the goal of the system or the man or whatever you want to call it is just to ensure that we just sit down and shut up. So, I mean, punk as a genre, as an aesthetic, like, that's the easy part to a certain extent. Like, you can have a 10-foot mohawk and still be a fucking poser. So I feel like all you really need to do to be punk is just to be true to yourself. That's it, really, completely. And by any means necessary, just be true to yourself.